and welcome to Nerdist Book Club Live on Nerdist YouTube and Geek and Sundry's Twitch. I'm Hector Navarro, and joining me as always are my amazing co-hosts, Rachel Heine and Maude Garrett. Hello to you both.
Hello, Poppet.
Oh.
The whole time? Thanks to everybody at home for joining us. We are in the middle of reading Lovecraft Country, and I'm at the start of drinking this big old glass of wine that I'm going to have drunk by the end of this episode. And we've got a White Claw, really, Maude? That's fine. We've talked about this. That's right. We've lost you to White Claw. That's right.
Just the mango one. But it's this noise. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love a good can of wine, too. A good can.
A good box of wine. We are in the middle of reading Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff and discussing the series, which is in the middle of its adaptation on HBO. So we have a lot to talk about, but the cool thing is we've sort of slowed it down a little bit to almost catch up to the show. So we're taking it episode by episode, right, every week, but we're also taking it section by section or chapter by chapter in Lovecraft Country, which is really cool. There's 8 total chapters. There's going to be 10 total episodes of the series. Is that what it is for this season?
Yes.
I think yes, question mark.
What all the cool people are doing?
I think so. And I did that for you. I mean, I did it because we had a lot to talk about, but I also did it for you, Hector, because you said that we tricked you into this and it was not my intention. So.
It's true. Yes. I love to watch the thing before I read the thing. But there's been occasions where that hasn't been the case, and it's been very interesting to do both kind of at the same time with Lovecraft, which is really cool. The Tamaranian. Did we open with a Mrs. Doubtfire reference? You bet your Pierce Brosnan butt we did. Okay. First,
Your pierced Brosnan.
You pierced Brosnan.
What is the Brosnan that gets pierced?
Okay, calm down. Maude, we can't go down that rabbit hole. We can't start with some Pierce Brosnan puns. Otherwise, we'll never get you back. Maude, come back. We are discussing it. So first, let's dive into the section that we read for this week, The Narrow House.
Least favorite one. Said it.
Really?
Yeah, super
really?
anticlimactic. Yeah.
Let me get this out of the way, because this was my major thinking while reading this section. I pulled up my movie soundtrack that I listened to while reading it, which is for the past couple of chapters, I've been listening to the score to the movie 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is very spooky, a little Lovecraftian, a little sci-fi, right? It's got a little of everything. So I'm listening to that, and I read the section.
I loved that.
That was a good movie. It was a very cool movie. And I read the section, and I thought to myself, this is very compelling, and it's very interesting. Bit of a basic ghost story, which is okay. We've had ghost tales in this book already. But my biggest takeaway was like, man, kind of sucks I didn't read this before watching HBO's Watchmen, because that was the big pop culture reminder of the Tulsa Massacre. It affected so many, everybody who watched Watchmen was so blown away by it. People who knew about Tulsa, people who didn't know, especially. And I feel like that was the pop culture moment where that thing, that was brought back to the zeitgeist and people were talking about it. And reading this section, I thought, if I had read this when the book came out, 2016, I would have been just as blown away. But reading it, it almost felt, and I know this is not the case, it almost felt like, oh, Matt just watched Watchmen and then put that. I'm like, no, that's not what happened. Two different, completely different stories each decided to tackle. So everything that had to do with that historical event, everything that had to do with characters describing it and how Montrose escaped from it, all of that stuff was very effective and very powerful. But I was reading it and going, gosh, it's kind of a bummer that HBO is adapting this and they can't, at least I don't think, maybe they will. I have no idea. I mean,
they've been referencing Tulsa with Montrose the entire time. And I also think the first week when I went through the deepest rabbit hole of research, because I was just fat, and with Watchmen too, when we were covering it on Nerdist, it was, not only learning more about historical moments that, but also what does it mean, trying to have dialogue about it. But that's the most famous of this time period is the Tulsa Massacre, but there were so many in this sort of very short period of time.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see from the beginning of Jim Crow laws right after the Civil War, like immediately, to be like, no, we're going to find a legal way to oppress people. Yep. And as you see sort of Black people moving to the city or creating their own world, that is sort of what not that it ever went away, but like rejuvenated this horrible sort of white riot mob murder massacre mentality, and it happened all over the United States, not just the South. But yeah, I think I'm interested to see in the show if they do a different depiction of this, because how many depictions of, you know, heroes in World War I do we see in World War II rather? World War I slightly less.
And yeah, it's messed up for me to even think like, oh, they can't do it, it'd be redundant. It's like, I just saw 1917 for the first time. It's a great film. Yeah. And there will always be stories, such a good movie. There will always be stories about people's experiences in horrific circumstances. And there's a reason we'll always tell those stories, and we should continue to tell those stories. It's very important. So like, yeah, I'm really curious about it. What was your overall thoughts? Maude, you said this is your least favorite section.
Yeah, I actually, with the fantasy-esque elements of it, it was kind of like, you know, Letty's haunted house sort of vibe with the ghost meets Hippolyta and her kind of like transportation and having like a portal. So it's kind of like ghosts in a time lock. Like, so it was kind of like, for me, both of those two combined, which if I didn't have those previous stories would have been new and refreshing, but it kind of felt like it was a bit recycled. And I'm with Wes a little bit as well, who's saying, I feel like they've really deviated from the book at this point.
Yeah, the show,
They have taken a few of the things.
Oh, yeah.
I like the fact that we are seeing sort of like stories simultaneously happening. So like, you know, we got sort of the William and Rosie sort of like introduction whilst we're going on the adventure, and I like that intertwining of it instead of being like boom chapter standalone.
Integrating it.
I've enjoyed that, but I'm interested to see sort of like what they're going to do with this story. Montrose is so unlikable. Personally for me, like he has been a roadblock the entire time.
In the show or in the book or both?
Both. The start of this chapter especially, where he smacks this kid that is not his child because he's just trying to buy a can of Coke from a machine. Like that for me was just like, you know the classic where it's like, if you want to immediately create a villain, you get them to hurt a child or an animal. Yep. And instantly you're like, unforgivable, not cool, you're the worst. Yeah. So Montrose is like, I am understanding we are seeing the people that are oppressed are also putting it back on. And we saw that in the episode this week as well with Rosie, you know, like, hey, if you've got the job, you step up, and I'm going to be, you know, now a white woman telling, you know, looking down on you. So it's like very interesting with those dichotomies. But for me, it's like, I'm wondering if because Montrose was just such an angry sod in the book, that they have to provide a new layer in his character in the series.
Which is he is gay, he is, and it feels like the show is exploring that and being like, this guy's dealing with a lot of shame, and it's a real bummer. And but like you said, Matt, it's this whole nother layer to the character, which is very interesting.
And he's not likable, even though I think in the show which we'll talk about, but I did love the 1950s drag club scene, and that it actually reminded me of
I know what you're gonna say.
Doom Patrol.
Yep, that's right.
Which,
that was one of the highlights of that show. Got me to
watch that show, and like that. Anything with Danny the Street is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and makes me want to cry. Was my favorite. I'm gonna watch that episode later because of just this week is it's a lot. This year's and life and everything. It needs some pick-me-ups.
Anybody watching right now that hasn't seen Doom Patrol and you're curious about it, I would even say if you wanted, you could even skip to the episode that Rachel's talking about, because it's a highlight episode of season 1.
It is, but I feel like it has heart and really dark humor from the get-go, which sold me immediately.
It does. It does.
But I'm also a completist. I can't like jump around in shows.
For sure. And I haven't seen season 2 of Doom Patrol yet, but I've heard good things, and it got picked up for season 3. And if you have HBO Max, you can see it there, but it is also on DC Universe. Doom Patrol is on there. I haven't started The Boys yet, but Maude, you're saying The Boys is shocking?
Yeah. So Doom Patrol is
so good.
Sassy. Doom Patrol is sassy. The Boys is shocking.
Gotcha.
And Umbrella Academy is sweet. So it's sweeter, I think.
They're like the Shady Bunch, not the Brady Bunch. They're like
Well, I watched the first season of The Boys, loved it. So fucked up. And then most recently watched Doom Patrol because it came to HBO Max after DC Universe, and loved that, and was basically, as season 2 was ending, and was like, okay, well now I have to watch Umbrella Company so I can get the sort of like ragtag messed up heroes like team trifecta completed. And then watched screeners for all of The Boys season 2, so I've seen all of it, and it is
nice.
Good. But they're all very different, all very unique. But I do, to bring it back, I think that a lot of there is this sort of debate, I think, in pop culture in general, and fiction. Not everyone has to be likable, and obviously we all know that. But I think Montrose it's tricky because in the show they're really playing. Oh, hi Kitty. Hi little baby.
How am I expected to concentrate when this is a fluke with a little...
Hello.
No, that's my Soul Patch. It's Soul Patch.
What do you think?
This is my cat, Soul Patch. Okay, bye. That's not Soul Patch.
Pan actually has a little white chin spot.
Oh, they're opposite. If they ever touch, our cats will implode because the singularity has. Yeah, we can't ever let them meet. We can't ever let them meet.
And love each other.
Their soul patches will go, and it'll be a blinding flash of glorious light. Oh,
we clearly all need a pick me up. Look at those little.
Got some white little chin hairs right here. No, but I agree with what you're saying, Rachel. Like, and I want to read this comment too because it kind of has to do with another thing that I am enjoying about the book. Chaotic Looney said earlier, I always prefer to read before I watch so I can picture characters without having them forced on me. I think that's such a funny perspective. It's totally valid, but for me, it is the opposite. I like to have an actor, a human being, walking around in my imagination, and absolutely for the better. I think the cast of Lovecraft Country, whether you like the characters or not, all of the cast is phenomenal.
Oh, they're incredible. I do miss Courtney B. Vance.
I know.
But he made such a great impact, and I do think that the choice to sort of have his death become this big moment for all of the characters, and it gets Letty in there more. Also, the relationship with Tick, Atticus, and Uncle George and Montrose, I think is super interesting as well. And it does give us this, much like having Christina instead of Caleb, where she is ostensibly like way up on the totem pole, but still is oppressed. She's a Karen. I mean, she's a Karen, not to minimize, the horrors of white feminism, of which there are many, but she still oppresses people even though she's oppressed. And Montrose is also that type of character.
Yeah, it's all passed down. What you are receiving is what you give. It's just
And but also there's a mentality, and obviously everyone is different, but I think something that frustrates me a lot just in regular discourse is saying, well, they were abused, so now they're abusive, or they're oh, I've got a cat now. Hello.
What? Mine's too far. I can't.
It's okay. He's not. If I picked him up, okay, that's your butt. No one wants to see that.
I forgot to feed him before we started it. That's
why.
So my cat's
If I picked him up, he does not like to be held. The other one does, but you can just sit there. That's okay.
That's really funny.
It's a pet night, but this idea that there is this complacency that can take place, I think, and especially at a time when like no therapy, you're in the 50s, you're completely traumatized, etc. But
suck it in and shove it down.
Yeah, just the Mad Men approach, just like go bang your head against the wall.
Yeah.
But this idea that Tick in the show is getting that anger. He grew up with this anger and this abused.
Yeah.
You can't fit on there. And that he doesn't want someone to be afraid of him. He doesn't want to become that. He doesn't, and that's a conversation that I feel like is lacking in a lot of fiction or otherwise, that yes, of course, what you experience and what you are taught can put you at a disadvantage to having relationships with other people, but it's still your responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a very serious point here.
You would know better than I would, Rachel, because Mad Men's your number one show. You love Mad Men, but I'm also very interested in, when it's done well, a show based in another time period where it's at least addressing that these issues are not addressed. Do you know what I mean? Where the show at least tells you, like you just said, everybody had a different thought about therapy back then. It's not something that was as readily available or as
even now there's
respected.
A huge stigma.
I know.
And there's also the other side of like, well, I went through this, and so that's the way that I thank you.
And that moment that Maude brought up where Montrose hits that kid, I was like, just like Maude said, I was immediately like, God, what an asshole. But also like, dude, this guy does not know how to communicate what he's trying to communicate, even if he's right and he's making a good point. And these kids, I know.
And what I find interesting is that the show has really harnessed Atticus's anger outbursts that manifest into physical violence.
Yes, yes.
And it's scary and it's, not okay.
Yeah.
But it's learnt. It's been behavior that he's taught. Right. And like the fact that he's so angry at his father all the time and has fantasized about killing him, you see through this opening scene just how Montrose treats innocence.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because his father, for better or worse, both in the show and the book, it's so hard. And we've talked about this with so many books, because I think just in terms of like psychoanalytic theory, your parents or the way that you're raised is, before you even have memories of it, it shapes you. That's how the brain works. And so it is very difficult to separate, what you have learned through watching, through experiencing, through your memories before you were, you're in developmental psychology, you mirror your parents to learn how to be a person. So if you are around someone, for example, who's sad, visibly sad, your mom or dad or whomever, all the time, there are so many studies that show that a lot of those people will deal with anxiety and depression later in life because they just took it in their brain. Our brains are weird. So
it doesn't absorb. They're sponges. Everything that they're seeing, they learn,
You two must have been around some really beautiful, tall people.
Oh, thanks, Hector.
Oh, because that's what we are. Yeah. I'm a hugger.
And also sad. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But
we all are.
But it's interesting to see someone like Montrose, who isn't a likable character, who is so angry and has many reasons to be angry, but he takes them out on someone else. And in the show, I do like that they give him more depth, a little bit to deal with, and sort of, not that it's not enough to have grown up as he did, but that if you're going to introduce a character in the show who is intersex, who you are literally silencing, which we talked about last week, which just
rubbed us
did not sit well with us.
Yeah.
And that, but you're hearing these hints about his sexuality, and then in this episode, he's sort of struggling with the guilt of knowing that he it was so afraid of this person and their knowledge and their existence, and hates himself for many reasons. I just think that adaptation made sense to me, but it does make this section of the book difficult because it's also so sad. I think someone, I think it was M the cartographer, was saying least favorite section too, but it made me feel some sad feels. Like Henry,
he's got survivors.
They're stuck in their, stuck in limbo, reliving their death.
And they can't feel it. Let's get into it. There was a lot in there that
what did they do to deserve that? Nothing.
It was very, very interesting. Well, to try to make it a little bit happier, John Adams just commented, "Okay, my cat just jumped up with me. Is everybody having extra friendly pets right now? I think extra hungry."
Days.
They're hungry, or they know that we're on month whatever of quarantine, and they're like, "You seem sad." I'm like, "Thank you.
Get out of the house." I can't. We need to. I can, but I'll have a mask on. The other thing I wanted to mention too, as we were talking about the cast and the show and reading it while watching it, even though Montrose, like we were saying, is so tough, to have that actor, Michael K. Williams, in my head as I'm reading this section made it infinitely better. Game Wizard 001 said to me in the chat, "Hector, I had that same thing happen when I saw Lord of the Rings for the first time and was reading the book shortly after Fellowship. The film helped me imagine the world much better." So I think it depends on what it is, and I think that's pretty cool. But let's just jump in. Here we go. This is the Narrow House. This is what happens. And also, I have to mention this thing at the top of the Narrow House, this section, which we always get in the book, a little, I don't know.
I'm listening, so I don't get the visual, but yes.
It's a little flavor text or whatever. It is, it's this little thing that it happens before each section. This is from G.D. Butler, survivor of the 1921 Tulsa riot, as quoted in the Chicago Defender, June 11th, 1921. It was harrowing. This was that thing where I was like, oh my God, this is so incredibly sad and it's frustrating, and it's crazy. Anyway, this is what happens in this section. In the book, Caleb sends Montrose to find Winthrop's son Henry, who ran away with Pearl, Hiram's maid, and took some of his father's books with him. Caleb, am I saying that right? Hiram? I am, right? No, Hiram?
Hiram. This is the thing as well. Like, obviously, Hiram's he's lost his mind. He's staying, his spirit is still attached to the world.
Haunting,
because he cannot fathom that Henry, his son, has fallen in love. It was fine when they were fooling around, but they actually fell in love and wanted to live together, and he cannot deal. So this is the second time we are trying to uncover the mystery of Henry and Pearl.
That's right.
Yeah, and also I think in terms of, and they showed this in the show and also in the books, but Caleb / William / Christina also.
Yes, you called it. You called it.
I was like, yes.
That was cool.
I was like, have we ever seen them in the same room together? It's one or the other, isn't it?
No, we literally have not. But it also kind of showcases this idea that I think Montrose, Henry, and Christina can understand, and Ruby, of it's okay for us to have sex, but not in public, not for anyone to know, not for it to be associated. Like there is that element of, we can do some things away from the eyes of society, but we can't like be together. And Henry is sort of the impetus. He's the first character, at least in the book, that challenges that, whereas Montrose in the show, and then Caleb, Christina, Ruby, that whole concept of, well, we can hook up, but only if no one knows.
Yeah. So Caleb believes that Henry is living under the name Henry Narrow in Illinois. Caleb previously sent a detective after Henry, but the detective disappeared with the money he'd been paid. He thinks that Henry will be more likely to trust Montrose because he's black.
Oh, half-truths the entire time. Question. Oh, this is probably why. And I don't like that all the time. Montrose is smarter. He understands the situation. And always Caleb's just like, oh, maybe this or potentially that. And it's like, he knows.
Yeah, so manipulative. That's right. Caleb promises Montrose that his family will be left alone when he takes over the order, even though Atticus is Titus's direct descendant.
So how is this happening if Montrose isn't? Who's Atticus's mum?
Oh, I don't know. She died, right?
She died.
If Montrose isn't the direct descendant, then it has to be through Atticus.
Right.
It's his mom, because at the beginning of the book, and I guess the show, one of the reasons Atticus comes back is because his dad was obsessed with finding out the true parentage of his wife, and she was like, it's fine, kept it hidden. I don't need to know. And Atticus was the one who knew that she had been a descendant of Hannah, who had fled Titus Braithwaite's house in the fight. But also, Montrose was obsessed with figuring it out.
The show, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the book has hinted at this yet, but maybe I missed it. The show hinted at the fact that Uncle George may have been the real Papa.
Uncle George,
Papa.
I think, is Papa. I think he is the father, is what I would say.
Maury Povich, nicely done. Okay.
You are that at home
when I was all the time.
Man, I used to watch Maury too, man. That was my sick day as a kid.
It was a good sick day.
Really? That's awesome. Is there like an Australian Maury? Or did you also have just reruns of Maury Povich? That's crazy. Wow. Wow. Yeah. That's great. All right. Here is what happens.
One quick thing please. That I don't think isn't in the book, because Turner is Atticus's last name in the book, correct?
Yes.
And he is which they
Sorry, I need to call my kid Turner round.
You should do that.
You get it?
Yep.
Can I sing it?
Nope, I almost did it. That's how you know. Normally but in the book, you have the book of days that which comes back into play in the book, where Montrose has an ancestor who wasn't a slave. In the show, their last name is Freeman. Sorry, I got Dune.
You did. Which, by the way, somebody commented, Rachel. Somebody said earlier in the chat, "I'm so glad that the Dune trailer reaction brought me to the Lovecraft coverage." So welcome if you're here because of our Dune trailer reaction. Welcome.
Yay! You can watch old episodes too, and also I would love to do the next book in that. But
Dune Messiah.
But in the show, Montrose and George come from free men, and you see that in episode 4, where Montrose kind of lies to Letty and says, "Oh, well, we were taught this, not blah blah blah, etc." And Atticus is like, "We were never enslaved on that side of the family." So I find that interesting too, that they have this in the show. They have kind of created you get to see both sides of being a Black person in this time who has roots in their ancestors were enslaved and their ancestors were not.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, because we mentioned Dune, we've summoned Matt Karen. Now Matt is in the chat. Hi Matt, how are you? Good to see you.
Did someone say Dune Messiah?
Yeah. It's got little Dune senses. All right, let's keep going with what else happens in this section. Montrose and Atticus, they go to Aiken, Illinois. I assume it's Aachen, probably, right? It's probably Aachen. At the Narrow's house, they meet David Lansdowne, a lawyer, who tells them that Narrow and his family were murdered. What's that? Lansdowne. A lawyer who tells him that Narrow and his family were murdered in 1945, a year after Henry auctioned off one of his father's books. Real quick, in this section, was anybody else suspicious of this lawyer? The whole time 100%. I was like, I bet you this lawyer is Henry Narrow, and he's just like lying about, oh, they died, but I'm some other guy. I have a different name. But he ended up being legit.
I thought he was working for Caleb somehow, because We've had the realtor. We've had all of these different
But his neighbor did have a
yeah.
neon sign that said "N-word lover," pointing to David's house, which was the most insane introduction. And then he came out running out of the house because the car pulled up and it was a strange car. So he was so used to being attacked by people because racism's insane. So the lawyer said that Henry, his wife Pearl, and their son Henry Jr., who they were saying Pearl was like a nanny and that his son was white passing, at least when he was with his father, like light skinned, but that the lawyer, you could tell that this was a family unit. They bought a house in a white neighborhood, despite the lawyer's warnings for their safety. We learned later that Henry thought that he was magical protected, but didn't consider just straight up racism.
Didn't get the full download from his mom.
You're right.
You know, like you would think that protection spell means against anything, but it's really it's from your dad. It's from your wizard sorcerer dad, but it's not from shitty. Shitty white people.
Exactly. Exactly. You're a target for racism, Harry. I'm a what? It's true. He didn't know. But also, that was also kind of Harry's deal a little bit, I think, wasn't it? No, it was more Hermione.
Xenophobia.
Was there a black
magical xenophobia?
Was there a black what?
Death Eater?
I can't remember. There were so few black students at that school, which is why
Brazil.
Yeah, which is why they got to do a movie set in the Brazil school
without JK. Without Joanne at all.
Just in case anybody's watching right now, I know everybody's very excited about the PS5. I saw somebody tweet a very cool thing where they were like, I'm definitely going to play the hell out of the new Harry Potter game that's coming out. It looks awesome. But however much money I spend on that game, I'm going to donate that same amount of money to
Frizzy Voices.
Yeah, trans organizations. If I stream, I'm going to raise money. If I stream and play it, for trans organizations to help trans people, which I thought was
kind of exactly Lovecraft Country. Where
yes, 100%.
The notion of H.P. Lovecraft, we don't like him.
Maude, you
was a racist motherfucker.
You did it. You brought it full circle.
We are going to love what you've created, but then make it our own and do what
100%.
That's what happened.
I have a Buffy tattoo. Doesn't mean I love Joss Whedon or his treatment of women in most of his projects.
Right. Buffy, Harry Potter, John Carter of Mars. We're claiming them all, baby.
Star Wars a lot of the time.
Star Wars a lot of the time. Yes. Star Trek for some stuff. It's pretty cool. It's getting cooler now. It's cool.
Pretty good though. Like in terms of like doing things first. And like
also in the chat, Game Wizard says any lawyer or legal official is immediately suspicious to me in the book. And I would wager my dad's pretty cool. He's a labor lawyer. He represents union
Rachel's
workers.
dad and Daredevil and She-Hulk. I don't trust any fictional lawyers in any story. That's it.
Lawyers or like officials like that. My dad's a Marxist, so like he's okay. But anyway, continue, Hector.
Let's jump back in. So their house. This is Henry and his family, right? Their house caught fire 1 month after they moved in. The coroner believed that Henry was murdered because it was like a bullet hole, but the police didn't investigate, and he didn't have anybody to report to. And it's just awful. In fact, the police chief's son bought the house at auction for a bargain, but when the police chief and the police chief's son and the mayor went out to celebrate in one car, they crashed into a tree and all died. The rumor. And this is interesting. The rumor, even though there was no eyewitnesses, nobody survived, was that they swerved to avoid hitting a black woman and her son.
Which also doesn't sound like something they do.
Yeah, but
it's logic. If they all died, how did that rumor come about?
I remember also that the lawyer
died.
That David Lansdowne, the lawyer, afterwards said, like, on top of that, other people in the neighborhood also started saying that they saw ghosts. Like they saw them, these, they saw them there. So it's like, okay. So the house is still there, but it's empty. So then Montrose and Atticus head to the other side of town to check out this house, while Atticus goes to ask for directions to, and I thought this was a very interesting point in the book too. He saw like an Asian gravedigger, somebody who was like Asian working at the graveyard or at the cemetery. Or whatever. And he was like, oh, I'm gonna go talk to this person. And Montrose was like, don't stay in the car, dude. Come on, don't do that. And I was like, yeah, this could go either way, but I feel like Atticus is going to be okay. But it could go either way.
Atticus knows the language, is like, he's a mystical being.
Yes.
I also have to say, Miss Necromancer, the police didn't investigate. Let me mitigate my shock. Drink, because what else can you do?
You know what else this section reminded me of was that
protesting, donate, and call your senators.
There you go.
Anyway.
Everybody take a drink. Just that little detail about Atticus, like clocking an Asian person and being like, I'm going to go talk to this guy to try to get some direct. That reminded me of how, since I've been a kid, I've been aware that there is different levels of prejudice within different like groups and cultures and stuff, right? Within the Latino community, there is a lot of anti-Black racism. Within the Asian community, there's a friction between Black communities and Asian communities. And I remember the first thing that I saw that reflected in was in the TV show Lost. If you guys recall, season 1 of Lost, after people crash on a deserted island, Michael, who's a Black character, and Jin, who's Korean, Sun and Jin are a Korean couple, like he assumes that they are having issues with him because he's Black. And he has to explain that to his son, who grew up in Australia, like Maude. So he doesn't know about that United States sort of like historical relationship that's there. So he has to tell his son, he goes, where I come from, like Korean people don't like Black people. And he had to like explain this to his son, and his son was like, what? And then he had to be like, it's stupid. I know, like,
it doesn't make sense at all.
I have that a lot. Like initially when I came in and I had to, I was assessing and like, you know, oh, this is the way it is. And I'm like, what? And somebody has to be like,
no, it legitimately does not make any sense.
None of this makes any sense, people. That's the point. None of this makes any sense. So anyway, I just liked it. I just thought that section that little detail made me think of that. So Montrose and Atticus are there. While Atticus is asking for directions, a boy throws a snowball. Did he just open the door? Yeah. Hang on a second.
Did your cat just open a door?
My freaking cat just opened the door to the outside, to the side of the house, while Keller's in the kitchen making dinner, because Abby's in the garage. She's working.
Which cat?
Oh my gosh.
Shu is so needy. He can see her through the window.
The shy one just opened a door to get to his mama?
He just tried to escape. They can open.
You're going to have to set a curfew. And
this is like Jurassic Park. This is like I could be saying to somebody like, what's my cat going to do? Open a door? Cut to, he just jumped and opened it. We have door handles like this.
Oh yeah, you got to replace those.
Not knobs. We have these.
And I also, baby. Also, Maude, you were saying need some curfew. I will say alternately, the more strict you are, the more they'll rebel. Anyway.
I should open the door, right? I should go make my cat smoke a pack of cigarettes. So I should go ahead, smoke them. Go for it. You want some alcohol? Drink it.
I would say no, because now I've become the person that I am. But I will say you should definitely swap out the doorknobs.
Yeah, that's rule number 1. So this is where things start to get a little supernaturally in this section, right? A kid throws a snowball. We learn, or it's implied that kid is.
Did you hear a child's laugh?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Nope. No.
It's not funny.
I'd be like, bye.
No.
Forever.
At least it wasn't twin girls down the end of a hallway. Have you seen The Shining, Maude? Have you seen The Shining?
We covered it for.
Did you watch the movie? I forget.
Yeah, I watched the movie and I tried to walk Zelda around the block afterwards, and everything scared me.
Come play with us.
Did you?
It got in my head big time. But to be fair, there was a car, no one was in it, and the trunk was open, and I was just like,
"Oh no,
this is how I die."
Run away.
Someone, right? It's so
Lee's so chatty, and he forgot to leave. He laughed so loud.
I thought I heard you earlier and was like, "Do we have a ghost?"
I love that we've got real-time reactions from Lee though, because it's like it kind of reminds us that we're a little bit funny or we're engaging. So that's good.
No, he's just being nice. None of us are funny.
We literally heard him laughing, and I was like, "Do we have a ghost? Where is that coming from?"
That's great. That's so great. Maude, did you ever see Dr. Sleep, the movie Dr. Sleep?
No, I did not.
Oh, it's good. Outside
Number
of
one, husband and wife.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. Outside of one
Henry
super
Cavill, Natalie Portman for me.
Wait, who?
Ooh, interesting.
If I were to choose
Natalie Portman and whomst?
We're having different
Natalie Portman.
Henry Cavill.
Oh,
We're having
Henry
different
Cavill.
conversations.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I don't know who mine would be, man.
Well, if I'm thinking like of all time women,
Yeah.
it would probably be like Winona Ryder or Christina Ricci or something. But I just in between Dune and Doctor Sleep, I was like Oscar Isaac, Ewan McGregor.
It's a good one.
Jessica Ferguson,
Rebecca
playing
Ferguson.
a sexy and or scary witch of some kind in both. Like the Venn
Doc-
diagram for me is a circle. It's just
Maude, you'll never watch it, but Doctor Sleep is a very good movie. And outside of one super gnarly scene that I don't want to say what it is, but I think if you've seen the movie, you'll know.
Tell me what it is, and
It's
then I'll
not.
watch the movie.
Oh.
See, Rachel knows what it is. I don't want to, but outside of that, I'll tell you after. I'll tell you not on camera because I don't want to. I don't want to spoil it. I don't know, but it's because if I say like which of those actors is involved,
book as well. It's based on the sequel.
And Halloween is coming up, and you know what? So's November, and we could just read.
Also, Halloween is all year round.
This is Halloween right there, exactly. Make it a blockbuster night. Make it a Halloween every night.
Oh, cute.
Dress. Beautiful dress. Okay, so this section was fun for me in that it started to get a little spoopy, right? Because the kid was a ghost kid, throws the snowball. Montrose goes to investigate it, falls down a hill. Suddenly he's in summer weather with winter still on the other side.
I do love it's very Narnia sort of.
Yeah.
Magicians.
He's magicians.
Through New York, and then he walks onto the estate of the university. Yeah.
Oh, interesting, because Matthew Kitson said this section reminded me of the scenes in The Magicians where they run into time-looped events.
A couple of things are,
cool.
Where you get stuck, cool. Which is such a it's the idea of limbo or some sort of curse that makes you relive everything. That idea of ghosts having to relive their death over and over again just like bummed me out.
I know. I think
they got free, they were away, they had a little family, and then now they're just stuck. Hey,
maybe after the events of this chapter, maybe they will be able to move on. Maybe they were hanging back for this. I don't know.
That would be good.
If you subscribe to that notion of like ghost stories being like the ghosts are here because they have unfinished business.
Much like in Casper.
Yes, just like Casper, Christina Ricci. Nice.
Not Devon Sawyer.
Oh, no, really? Not
What's
a fan?
his name?
That Sawa. Devon.
Sawa. Yeah.
He follows me on Twitter for some reason.
Sawyer. Well, he seems like a pretty cool dude. Somebody asked where I got the shirt. I think Target. I think just get it. I just ordered at Target, I think. I don't know. All right. So then Montrose, he finds Henry Winthrop / Narrow, who is still in his 20s, his age when he died. Montrose tells him why he's there, but says all he cares about is that Caleb leaves Atticus alone. He's describing his son, protecting his son. Henry says he
I liked the fact that Montrose was kind of like, sure, Caleb, yeah, I'll do it for you. And then as soon as he gets there, he's like, right, it's not about Caleb at all. It's about protecting my son. I don't care about the books. I'm not going to.
Defeating
You're
Caleb.
Clearly more open-minded and less of a racist evil wizard than Caleb is, so let me just break it down. It feels like he's almost like Atticus is like, let me ask this person because he's marginalized in some way. Montrose is like, look, you are at the very least that Henry is less of a racist monster person.
So he wanted to go talk to
just because he fell in love with someone and ran away and sort of left that whole evil wizard cabal of bad dads.
Henry says he's going to give Montrose the books, but first he wants something in return. He wants to feel something. He can't
what? Is this the first time a man in this book has wanted to feel something?
But it creeped me out. Like the way that it happened was like, it felt very like vampiric, but not in absolutely way.
That's how it was described. It was, if and when this happens in the show, it's going to get spooky. It's going to be like these ghosts are like
sucking your soul or feeding your emotions out. Feeding,
which is sad. So so Henry is like, I can't feel anything, I can't enjoy anything in the suspended state that we're in, no highs, no lows. Henry asks Montrose to tell him a story, aka he forces Montrose to relive the Tulsa massacre. Montrose tells him about a man who was going to be lynched for falling in love with a white woman, and it led to violent clashes between the black neighborhood and the white mob. No, I also think the book was talking about a guy was just in an elevator and like fell down on a white woman, and she was like, he attacked me.
Yeah.
And that escalated to like, this is a bunch of lies, and the paper put out a lie of like her clothes were shredded, and then they still took back the lie. Doesn't matter. That information was out there, which shows you how dangerous information
is what's happening right now.
Absolutely.
And also I think in the show shows a little bit of that, and in the book where Ruby as Hillary in a white woman's body, stumbles, and there's a young black kid, and immediately the police come to, and there's a modern day equivalent of white supremacists on Twitter falsely identifying suspects of shootings and things like that, and you're just putting people in danger.
Yep.
And but I found that really interesting too, because that again is something that was so prevalent in this era and all of the history of Jim Crow laws, that it was like, oh well, something bad happened to a woman, or a woman had a consensual relationship with someone, and then it became, we have to murder the black person involved because obviously they took advantage. Like, it's just the most evil way of looking at anything.
I want to talk about the episode. Let me power through the rest of the stuff so we have some time to do it here in the show. So that violent mob is getting ready. Montrose's father, as the story that he's telling, is so worried about them losing Ada's book. So he packed up his family and their valuables in the car. George goes to get the book. Montrose gets caught in the middle of a gunfight, but Ulysses, his father, takes a bullet to save him and then dies.
Greek name.
Absolutely. Henry.
Ulysses, now Diana.
Oh, we got to read Circe soon.
Okay.
My favorite. It's the best book I've read in like a bajillion years.
Anyway. I'd be down. Henry then tells Montrose about his own parents. His mother was a witch who ended up in a wheelchair after she mistranslated a spell. She wanted a portal or power or something. Hiram was trying to create a portal to another planet. After his mother's accident, Hiram started playing with machines and young apprentices. Henry's mother didn't like that he was endangering others and wanted to leave him, but she needed to fix her legs first, so she attempted to do that. She knew that the ritual to heal herself might kill her, so she left Henry with instructions on how to get away from him. He ran away with Pearl and became Henry Narrow. They used magical wards to protect the house, but Henry didn't realize the wards only protected against magical threats. Suddenly, a mob of people show up trying to kill Henry. The family relives their death over and over again in this strange limbo state, apparently, which is very sad. Later, Atticus finds Montrose in the Narrow House in the real world, holding the books. Montrose tells Atticus that they're going to tell Caleb they didn't find anything. And that, like, you have to believe it because he's going to read your mind. So just believe it. We didn't find anything. Understand? Okay, got it. Yeah.
I don't think Montrose is going to do that in the show.
No.
I do not trust show Montrose to do anything right at all. Unless we get to post his beautiful 1950s drag music sequence, which was just like made me cry a little bit. I thought that was beautiful.
It was really, that whole group of drag queens, to see them in this show in that time period, I was like, this is lovely. This is really great.
It's so good. And also knowing that Montrose, or at least my interpretation was, he is now faced with, I just murdered someone because of my own bullshit and self-hatred, and now I'm with these people that I love and I want to be with, but we haven't kissed, we haven't done anything that is romantic. And being around these amazing people who are authentically themselves, and he's not only unable to do that, he just silenced someone because of who they are. And so maybe that means that he is opening up and going to be more open with Tick and be more honest and not just ruin everything that they're doing all the time.
I know.
Burning the book, murder.
I don't want to be too hard on the show. I don't want to be too easy on the show.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep myself in this area of like, gotta wait to see how the season wraps up. And then I think I'm really going to look back and be like, okay, how do I feel about those decisions that were made? Because ultimately it could all sort of wrap up in a final few episodes. liked the episode overall. My one thought was like, I wish that versus the book went into the specifics of why Ruby in the body of a white woman would even consider continuing to do that because of all of the differences in her life. The first time that she
ice cream.
First time she went through town. Exactly. The first time she went through town. In the show, the first time she went through town, she was kind of this crazy wild woman and people came to help her, but there wasn't as much of like, oh, you want to come in here and talk to this person and look how nice this is and look how nice this is. That was my one thing. Maude, you watched.
Right, because it was still tarnished by the husband called and she's crazy and she needs to take her medicine.
Yeah, you're still owned by something.
Yeah.
That way.
Maude, you watched the episode today, and I warned you it was Gnarls Barkley, and it was. What'd you think of the episode?
There was a time where I was like, you know what? I actually preferred how the book treated some of it over the show.
The transformation.
Yeah. So
transformation I really liked actually in the show.
It was insane. The transformation.
I like I really enjoyed the body horror of the transformation.
Yeah.
And that it's almost like you have to hide it. Becoming someone like theoretically better or higher on a totem pole, easy to do.
Yeah.
Shedding back to yourself is a really intense. I really liked the body horror of that, but on the other side there are a lot of really brutal scenes in the episode that don't have to do with the transformation that I had it was hard to watch.
I agree, and I feel like they are making changes to be like, no, it's not this easy, you know, this is a little cookie cutter, this is a little clean, this is a little effortless. And there needs to be more consequence, which is interesting because in the book, what I really liked about this, my favorite part about the Narrow House was the consequence of magic. It was like they were too green. They didn't understand how to cast the spell. And if they didn't articulate it in an eloquent or an efficient way, massive permanent consequences were happening. The mum's legs were blocks of cement or something like that. You know, she was permanently debilitated because she wanted to fix her legs, but didn't use the right language to cast the spell. And I liked that. I like the fact that if you're going to fuck around with magic, you have to be so smart and not just sort of willy-nilly and just saying words or I'll do this and I'll do that, because there's immediate and permanent consequences that happen.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what the show has done with the transformation. It's not have a little potion and whoop. This is
you can transform quickly, but to go back to yourself is gross. Also, I think there is the element, when we were talking about this before the show started, of the show, I think to this point, much like with Montrose in the 4th episode, where you're like, I need more for why did it end at the point where you're murdering someone? And the same thing with the ending of this episode for me was, is the show saying that Ruby is doing this to her admittedly shitty attempted racist boss or attempted racist boss? Are you supposed to, with this needle drop song, are you supposed to be cheering Ruby on, or is this what Letty is talking about, that the magic is corrupting them? And
great question.
I don't think that the show, for both of the last episodes, it ends on this note, and obviously in a general sense, you know,
it's not a winning
exciting TV. That's a good thing to have, but from something that is so smart and has taken so many really tough subjects, it's hard when you end on that note where you're like, I don't know what your point of view is on this.
Right. I'm not rooting for you. Like, I understand.
But are we supposed to? Because I'm definitely not. But I just can't tell right now what the show is trying to say.
But that's the thing, that again, they're not glossing over this feel good, yay, we got the bad guy, look how great it's fighting fire with fire. Like it's, you know,
two wrongs. Does it make a right? I don't know. Clever Girl in the chat room said, in the show, it didn't talk about how Ruby had run out of options. That was the other thing too, that I kind of missed a little bit of that backstory, because we opened with she woke up in the bed and here we go. Matthew Kitson said Jamie Newman was fantastic as Hillary. thought that she nailed the mannerisms that Ruby would do. That's the actress. And I remember watching the show and being like, wait a minute, that's the same character who was the sheriff that Letty knocked out in Artem, the woman with the dogs.
Knocked out or killed, because then we also have this confluence of the sheriff in Boston.
Yeah, or Chicago,
in the show, or what, Chicago, wherever it's happening.
Yeah.
But in the show, Christina, aka William, I will never not be like, I fucking called it. But I'm sorry, I'm very proud. But that the fact that she was saying, oh, William got shot and I saved him, et cetera, et cetera. I think that they, different from the book, where they have these bodies hooked up to all these tubes and they're drinking their blood in some way, which gross. But I think that in the show, it's someone who's dead. And there's magic around that, because Letty hits that lady sheriff real hard in the head.
Yeah,
we have
that's
not
true.
seen her, so there could be that. And then the sheriff in the show, what is happening with his Frankenstein situation? And the dude in the closet
lost his tongue.
Was giving me
Frankenstein, all right, yeah, like with like they're taking body parts and
they were. It was
black body.
Some black bodies. This Get Out. Yeah,
that's right. Jordan Peele. That's why they brought him in. They're like, look, Jordan, we're just gonna do this. Can you just also be a producer, and we'll pay you? Can we just please basically do
also
elements of Get Out?
Someone mentioned it earlier, but definitely got the monkey paw vibes, which is, wishing for something and getting the worst example of it, but also the name of Jordan Peele's production company.
Exactly. Yeah. And somebody else said in the chat, it was Game Wizard, the transformation felt very American Werewolf in London. That level of like really grotesque. Body horror. Yeah, really grotesque.
Or
really
just general like God, why am I blanking on his name now? The Fly, King of Body Horror, Hector. Cronenberg, thank you. Like the whole thing was the most Cronenberg. One of my favorite gifs of all time is from Scanners, where a guy's head explodes, but the gif is his head explodes and then it's pizza. I will tweet it after this, but it reminded me of that, where she's just like, and that the fact in this episode that Ruby, as she's learning about her transformation, is they're listening to some science show or whatever. Talking about the 5 stages and what they mean. And actually throughout the episode, she sheds her skin in a very violent way multiple times. And each time she is sort of learning or changing something about herself.
Yeah,
to the point where by the end, she's like, I'm going to burn this whole thing down. Also, what does it mean that Christina is William? She is a queer woman. I think that's fascinating. I just think that's so interesting, and I want the show to go into it more.
It's just like when
I think she's using Ruby as a pawn. Ruby is a means.
I think that's 100% true, but also
she's getting the job done.
Yeah, I think it reminded me of when Marvel Comics writers realized that Mystique from the X-Men was turning into different people as part of her power. That like, wait a minute, if she could turn into males, she could then hook up with, then her sexuality became like, let's get into it. She's had relationships with women, men, everybody.
It is where you could. Yes, she used this William body to do that. There could have been ways for her to. I think. Yeah. To me, it opens up, and obviously, I read. I'm like, everyone is queer on a spectrum, and everything. But I do think that having that sort of, if you were able to magically be. Someone else.
Listen, if I walked around in a woman's body for 24 hours, I might get some. That's all I'm saying. All right. The biggest takeaway here, the most important takeaway, is that Nerdist in the chat said, while watching this last episode of Lovecraft Country, was eating dinner and didn't expect the gore. Yes. And I got that warning from when Nerdist was tweeting it. So I was also having dinner while eating it. And I was like, I better eat this quick. I better eat this quick. It's going to get crazy. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah.
I really want to read out Necromancer's comment because it's so spot on. And that is every single time Ruby was shedding Hillary's skin, it was like she was shedding more than her skin each time. She was shedding her morals, her values, her
realizing that. I read a really great, I'll have to find it and tweet it out, a really great piece about that episode, about how Ruby learning that the black woman who got the job at the department store didn't have any of her skill sets, didn't have anything. I think it was by Joelle Monique, actually. It was really good. And it was about even in a white woman's body, learning that different sizes of bodies are another element of that this character didn't have any of the qualifications that she had or even know that they existed. She was hired for the way that she looked of a certain way.
But Ruby didn't apply. She wanted to apply, is what I think.
Oh, interesting.
She didn't actually get to do it.
No, because when she went,
she was already hired. So it wasn't even like there was a competition.
Not that it's necessarily true, but that she's sort of she's confirming her own insecurities and her own worries about
that's solidified when she hands in her resume, which is the same freaking resume. But
and they're like, oh, you should be a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
true. But also,
true.
I don't think that dude would have hired her in a million years.
Oh,
to come in as herself.
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. Well, everybody, that is it for this episode. We have got an exciting after show that we're about to go into right now. But before that, your homework is for the next week, you've got to read Horace and the Devil Doll. Horace.
This one.
I'm so excited.
Horace and the Devil Doll is what you've got to
scary.
read.
I want to be scared. I want to be scared of this book.
We've got two sections left. This is very exciting. Read Horace and the Devil Doll. You can check out previous episodes of Nerdist Book Club and our Lovecraft Country coverage on Nerdist YouTube or Geek and Sundry's Twitch or June or the June trailer reaction. Make sure that you like and subscribe and smash that notification bell and smash that subscribe button. And we're on YouTube, baby. That's what you got to smash those buttons. And Maude, we are jumping over to the after show. Where can people find it?
Hell yeah, the Discord. We have a hashtag reading and a book club section there, but it is for Patreon backers only. Any level of support, you get access to this. We have a fun little Q&A. We get very real. I usually eat runts or something of the sort. So please join us over there, and we'll see you there very momentarily.
And you can also watch Fungins and Flagons with Maude and Hector if you subscribe. And I'm going to watch it later, and I'm very excited. We're going to chat about it.
This will be good. Hector was amazing in it.
I'm not
surprised. Hector has petitioning for Elaine Notkurt to have Lederhosen.
Sure, that's fine. That'll work. That's fine. I picked a character that Maude didn't recognize what character I was doing for the whole episode. Yeah.
But like a lot of it, like I understood like that you were doing like the Nightcrawler voice, and like I didn't get Elaine though. I got Kurt, didn't get Elaine.
Okay.
I'm playing Nightcrawler from the X-Men basically. I mean a new character so that we can avoid copyright law. So everybody head over to the Geekbomb Patreon. We'll see you there. We're going to keep talking Lovecraft Country, the book and the show, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Oh yeah, we're 5